Guess what? Haha, I'm not allowed a tag either. He then continues to say, the Southport killer has a job. He attends mosque. He has freedom. He was 2 cells above me in Belmarsh. And I would just like to remind people that these are allegations made by Robinson. I did reach out to Belmarsh for comment and ended up speaking to the Ministry of Justice, who will not provide comment on individuals or location.
As the British public, we knew that we were not only being lied to, but to use that very modern adjective, gaslit, over the Southport Massacre. After Slippery Starmer was booed and jeered by locals and relatives while visiting the scene of the crime where Axel Rudakubana is accused of stabbing to death 3 young girls at a Taylor Swift dance class, he decided the only way to quell the growing fury of ordinary Brits was to silence and demonise us at the same time. Any discussion about the truth of Rudakubana's Islamist extremism was immediately dismissed as disinformation. And if you were spreading it, by the way, you were part of the far right. Indeed, anyone, including an elected politician like Nigel Farage, who asked questions about what was really going on, was accused of selling snake oil populism by our authoritarian Prime Minister, Slippery Starmer, who set out to make his point by locking up grandmothers for Facebook posts and grandfathers for simply shouting at police during heated protests. All of this overreach was deliberate, deliberately designed to silence you, deliberately designed to stop people like me asking questions. Even when the police belatedly admitted Rudakubana was being charged with terror offences for the production of ricin as a bioweapon and the possession of an Al-Qaeda manual, still we were told that we were wrong to classify the Southport Massacre as a terror attack. Further, the Speaker of the House silenced politicians from asking Starmer and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper what they knew when. And depressingly, most parts of the mainstream media, including GB News, are so terrified of being found in contempt of court that they banned discussion of the cover-up altogether. But this is a cover-up of epic proportions, and as a result of what I've just described, very few people have been prepared to shine a light on what's really going on. I am one of them, and so too is Nigel Farage, who described the cover-up as the biggest of our lifetimes in a dramatic interview with my friend Winston Marshall, formerly of Mumford & Sons, at the weekend.
On Southport, all I can say to you right now is I know a hell of a lot more than the British public know. A hell of a lot more. I've been completely silenced. I dared, the day after Southport, to do a video to say, can we please know who this man is? Was he known to the authorities? Why do I feel we're not being told the truth? The level of demonisation I came under for that from both front benches was astonishing, from media commentators. Demonisation on a level that I'd never even experienced. Now I'm told by the Speaker of the House of Commons, I can't ask questions about it in the House of Commons. Parliamentary privilege is out of the window. Even rumours today that the court case, which is due in January, every effort is being made to defer it. Right? Yeah, this is what's going on. We are witnessing one of the biggest cover-ups we've ever seen in our lives. And I won't say any more than that. I genuinely would never wish to be in contempt of court. I have respect for our legal system. It's not perfect, but it's a damn sight better than most of the rest of the world. But as Jonathan Hall KC and Lord Carlisle, one, the terrorism czar, the other, a seasoned professional international respecter of how terrorism laws work and how a legal process works, both of them agree with me. The public should be told the truth about the individual. That does not prejudice the case that is about to come up. And much of the rioting that happened in Southport and elsewhere was with an absence of people being told the truth. So I won't go any further than that,
Of course.
other than to say I will be proved right.
The thing about cover-ups, however, is that when the public work out the truth, our distrust in the people who have lied to us, in this case the political establishment, will never return. So Starmer's reputation is on the line, and I believe that his short-term bid to silence the public will destroy him in the end.
Latest charges of the ricin and that he had Al-Qaeda material in his home.
A non-terrorist incident, you understand? They're still telling us that. A non-terrorist incident. Do you believe them?
I guess we'll have to wait and see on that.
There you are.
on
The wise answer, given where we are.
Yeah. Americans watching won't understand that, but there's a sub judice law, which means you can't speak about it, which is why you're being careful.
Well, it's why Americans are really looking at us and saying, my God, what's going on in your country?
Yeah.
Their First Amendment, a very fundamental thing, a very important thing. Our rights of free speech, something we'd always taken for granted. And suddenly it feels like they're under assault.
Yeah.
And I think Starmer's instincts on all of this are deeply authoritarian. But, you know, you can only kick the can so far down the road.
Yeah.
When the truth comes out about this, I believe, his reputation as Prime Minister will take a dent of enormous proportions.
Now, very little is known publicly about Rudakubana, but it was Tommy Robinson, incarcerated Tommy Robinson, via the independent journalist Lewis Brackpool, who was able to shed some light on his life in Belmarsh today.
Guess what? Haha, I'm not allowed a tag either. He then continues to say, the Southport killer has a job. He attends mosque. He has freedom. He was 2 cells above me in Belmarsh. And I would just like to remind people that these are allegations made by Robinson. I did reach out to Belmarsh for comment and ended up speaking to the Ministry of Justice, who will not provide comment on individuals or location.
Attending mosque. Of course he is. Another brilliant independent journalist, Charlie Bentley-Astor, confirmed that story, writing, I can confirm I have heard identical. Axel Rudakubana attends mosque in Belmarsh prison. Robinson's official account also posed this question. If you are local to Southport and you have information about a supposed non-disclosure agreement that people have been forced to sign over the recent murders and attempted murders of young girls, we would want to hear from you. If you live very close to the alleged killer, we want to hear from you. We will protect and uphold your right to anonymity as a journalistic source always. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary, summed it up well, I think, by saying, Starmer doesn't want to control immigration. He wants to control you talking about it. Meanwhile, the persecution of the white working classes who expressed their anger post-Southport continues at pace. Last week, I brought to international attention the shocking case of the care worker and citizen journalist Cameron Bell, who has been locked up for 9 months for streaming some of the arrest on TikTok. As Elon Musk concluded, the UK is now a police state. But still, the over-the-top punishment goes on. Peter Lloyd, another one shining a light on these things, wrote, 2 more white working-class men have been jailed for Southport-related disorder. Jack Cregan and Colin Brown got 5 years at Manchester Crown Court this week. Brown breached metal barriers and shouted at police while Cregan damaged a bus. Meanwhile, paedophiles go free. The UK's two-tier justice has now become so infamous around the world thanks to Musk's free speech platform X. And actually, thank God for X, because it's how I was able to see over the weekend, for example, thanks to citizen journalists, this video where the police in London don't appear to give a damn about yet another death threat against Jewish folk.
Now, these people are terminally deranged. And the sickness is Zionism. And it's incurable. So they just need to be put down, perhaps. But there's no...
Of course, the police are far more interested in terrorising Britain's best columnist Alison Pearson for posting a tweet calling out Jew haters like that. Police are still investigating this as a crime.
The fact that they would come to my house to talk to me about something I posted on X a year ago does seem a bit of an overreaction, doesn't it? Who is my accuser? They are the victim, not the accuser. Doesn't sound like justice, does it, Dan?
You have clearly been targeted by the very powerful pro-Hamas lobby here, manipulating the legal process.
I would bet that it was people on the left.
Regulating the internet, it's practically impossible, so just give up. Lots of people are talking about you. I've watched a lot of the mainstream media today, not a mention.
Free Speech Union thinks this is up to about 65 a day of these things now. Chief constables, some of whom are quite woke, are like pleasing the pressure groups who come to them with racism and whatever. Hardly any solving of burglaries or sexual violence.
There is a genuine attempt by this Labour government to make people terrified to speak out. And of course, it's sick what's happening to Alison. But it's equally sick that so many of you, because I know, because you talk to me, feel unable to post what you really think or what you really know is going on in this once great United Kingdom. But after just 4 months, time is already running out for Starmer, the most hated Prime Minister in history. It's not just me who thinks this, by the way. Esther Krakow wrote, "Deep down, Keir Starmer must know his days as PM are numbered. The scale of the Southport cover-up is simply criminal." Nick Dixon added a word of warning, saying, "I don't see how the government can survive this Southport scandal when it finally breaks. But knowing our media, what will actually force Starmer out will be a relatively trivial personal matter, though perhaps the latter will just be the scapegoat for these deeper causes." Winston Marshall, who conducted that interview I showed you with Farage earlier, is convinced it's only a matter of time, though. The truth about Southport, when it comes to light, will change Britain forever. And now, the uncancelled interview. And I'm delighted today to be joined by the entire show, the award-winning historian, broadcaster and author Rafe Heydel-Mankoo of the New Culture Forum. But first, I want to bring in the independent journalist Lewis Brackpool, who we just saw there reveal some big news about Axel Rudakubana behind bars from Tommy Robinson, also behind bars. So Lewis, absolutely fascinating insight. And you are convinced that Tommy Robinson is aware, given the cells were in such close proximity, that Axel Rudakubana is able to attend mosque within Belmarsh prison.
So just to start with, this is, of course, all just allegations from Mr. Robinson. I, of course, stressed that in the video. This particular report was mainly focusing on Tommy Robinson's prison conditions. As we heard, he's obviously been moved from Belmarsh to Woodhill, and I could communicate with him via the email a prisoner website.
Got it.
After he mentioned the information regarding Southport, I then saw that and thought, okay, well, that's clearly quite big information. I need to seek legal advice before, of course, sharing anything, of course, talking about anything, because a lot of journalists are on edge with regards to this subject, understandably.
Yeah, they think that you just can't talk about it at all. They just think it's easier to follow what the Speaker of the House has told MPs. Let's just not say anything at all about Axel Rudakubana or the cover-up. And actually, that's not true. You can talk about it. You just have to be careful, don't you?
Correct. This is absolutely correct. And I'm being as careful as possible. So I consulted lawyers to ask about the given message, and it got the green light, and we spoke about it. And it revealed some information about life imprisonment, and this is apparently across the board. This is a standard procedure for institutions such as this, where inmates are able to attend worship services and, of course, on top of that, have a job. Now, you compare that with Mr. Robinson and his solitary confinement treatment, and it shows a clear two-tier injustice in that respect. And I think that's what Tommy Robinson was alluding to in his messages. I'm planning to try and visit Mr. Robinson during his incarceration or during his imprisonment to obviously have a conversation, because after I followed up with 4 other messages, each message I had to word carefully, take bits out just in case it might get screened or, you know, blocked. And it kept happening. I kept having messages blocked by either the governor or the prison screening process, because each message that is sent out via you or via the person that you're speaking to, the recipient, is always screened by a governor and is always looked over just in case there are any material that could be incriminating. So that was allowed to be sent to me. But my response is saying, look, I cannot disclose anything to you know, the public just as yet. I need to consult a lawyer. I need to consult, you know, go through the legal side first before obviously talking about it. But even that was being blocked. So it shows that clearly something is going on. I don't even want to try and allude to what is going on, because that's how frightened people are right now because of what is happening.
Okay, but it looks like based on what you're saying and based on the fact that Tommy Robinson, I mean, absolutely incredible, was breaking news as a citizen journalist from behind bars. It looks like as a result of that, they have now limited his communication with journalists like you, although of course we can't say for absolutely certain. But Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, isn't it astonishing that it is Tommy Robinson who is able to reveal that Axel Rudakubana is attending mosque behind bars? Now remember, Rafe, we only knew from the police very recently that he had been charged with terror offences. Up until that point, the official narrative was that the guy isn't Muslim, that he hasn't converted to Islam. Yet there he is in Belmarsh prison attending mosque. But first, I love the holidays. It's my favourite time of year in so many ways, but I can think that these days it's a little bit demanding. You know, all the dinners, all the gift buying, all the planning. And as I get older, I will admit that I tend to burn out a little bit quicker each festive season. But not this year. I don't plan to burn out at all. Because while getting older is inevitable, feeling older isn't. As we get older, our body's ability to create energy declines, but recent scientific discoveries have found we can actually increase our energy levels in our cells by taking something called NMN. NMN has been shown to increase energy and endurance, activate our body's ability to burn fat, enhance mental function and health, improve blood pressure, regulate blood sugar levels, and support many other health markers. Finding high-quality pure NMN is hard, so I use Verso. They conduct third-party testing for each batch produced to guarantee you get what you paid for. It contains the highest quality NMN and other research-backed ingredients that have been shown to increase energy levels and slow down aging. After taking Cellbean for some time, I feel like a younger version of myself. I've noticed more energy, enhanced endurance, improved cognition, fat loss, better sleep, and if I do get a cold, I recover faster. So click on the link in the description on YouTube and Rumble, or head on over to buy.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout. You will save a whopping 15% on your first order. So I'm just going to repeat the address: www.buy.ver.so/outspoken. Use the coupon code outspoken.
Yes, if true, the allegations will be astounding to many. To some of us, however, perhaps not so surprising at all. But let's be clear here. It is not sub judice to ask what our Prime Minister and our Home Secretary and the police knew in terms of this Al-Qaeda material, the possession allegedly of ricin in the house, what they knew and when they knew it. And this terrible legal requirement that we have here in the UK not to discuss aspects of an investigation publicly for fear of prejudicing the trial, it's not the case in other countries, and it's consistently used and abused by politicians and others to conveniently sidestep questions. That's why Starmer and Cooper can get away with not responding to legitimate questions, including by MPs like Nigel Farage, whereas, of course, they were perfectly happy to condemn the Southport protesters as far-right thugs, even for the Home Office to call these protesters criminals before they were ever convicted. That was fine. And yet, for some reason, they are silent on this. We need to know what they knew and when they knew it. Because if it actually does turn out to be the case that despite saying it wasn't a terrorist incident, they knew about the possession of these materials, and yet they knowingly condemned people for telling the truth, and they knowingly allowed these people to be convicted and in many cases imprisoned for telling the truth, well, then it really will be one of the greatest scandals we've ever experienced in this country. And in normal times, that would definitely be a question for prime ministerial resignation, if not the collapse of an entire government.
Indeed. But the problem that I have, Lewis, and it's so fascinating to me that here we are relying on independent journalism, independent shows like this, independent journalists like you, because as Rafe points out very clearly, it would be absolutely possible for a mainstream journalist to ask the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary what they knew about the charges against Axel Rudakubana and when they knew it. And not one journalist has done so, Lewis, even though Keir Starmer in particular there's been multiple opportunities. I mean, he's just been on a plane, for example, to Rio de Janeiro, surrounded by the press pack. Not one question. So, Lewis, I would argue that the mainstream media are as in on this cover-up as the government.
Yeah, you could be genuinely correct there. I think the problem is now you see mainstream journalists, they take a course and then they join a big corporation or a big media company, and then they just get part of the system. They just join the system. It's like I can't even explain it. It's like glue. They go near it and they just stick. And then after that, they don't become journalists. They become mouthpieces. It's not the same. That at the end of the day, I went out and I sourced my information. I went out and I went and spoke to Robinson, and I know a lot of mainstream media journalists wouldn't even dare to do such a thing because of their prejudices or biases or whatever. But asking about conditions in prison and then stumbling upon information that is unbelievable, I say unbelievable, quote unquote, it just shows that independent journalism is so needed in times like these. Citizen journalism is the most important factor or antidote to corrupt mainstream journalism now in 2024 in modern times. So I encourage more people to get involved in citizen journalism because we need it more now, more than ever before.
Indeed. But that's why Starmer sent, well, I don't say Starmer directly, but the system that Starmer is in charge of sent down Cameron Bell, the 23-year-old care worker, simply for streaming what was going on after some of that unrest onto TikTok. By the way, I just want to quickly show you another part of this interview with Nigel Farage. It's caused quite a lot of agitation, this interview, in terms of Nigel's positioning on Islam in particular. But he does seem to have moved a little bit to the right post the election of Donald Trump on the issue of mass deportation. So I'll get both of your reaction, but let's just look first to what Nigel had to say.
That we can't deport from Britain because there's no political will. When I hear J.D. Vance, he says it's not political will, it's practicality. For them, how on earth could they possibly deport 21 to 25 million people?
Well, I get that. I get that point. Of course, there's practicality with everything in politics and in life. But what would I do with those crossing the English Channel today? They're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Deport immediately.
Yeah.
Can you deport everybody that's come in the last 25 years illegally? Well, yeah. Then you've reached the ground of practicality, obviously.
So then my question would be, there are, according to at least one report, 1.2 million illegal people in Britain, illegal migrants. Would you give them amnesty?
No.
So what would you do?
Never, ever give amnesties.
So Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, this interview has caused a lot of consternation because, of course, Nigel does make it clear that he's not advocating for the destruction of Islam. However, can you take some hope in the fact that he has moved his position on this issue of mass deportations from the interview earlier this year with Stephen Edgington of GB News, where he ruled them out?
Yes, many of the issue here ultimately is that the Reform Party needs to actually come out with clear policy statements. And unfortunately, we're not getting that. All we're getting are off-the-cuff remarks made by Nigel Farage, which vary from one podcast to another. And of course, you take the clips and of course, people then get rather irate. We need to have, and we're being failed by them for not actually telling us precisely what they want to do. Look, the discussion about mass deportations has moved everywhere except in this country. Nigel Farage and Reform are to the left now of even mainstream politicians in Europe. I mean, for heaven's sake, you have the Swiss, the Finns, the Hungarians all discussing mass deportations. You have the Swedish government talking about voluntary repatriation, they're calling it remigration, by offering 3,000 kroner to each person who will go back to their country of origin, even if they're a naturalized citizen, not just illegal immigrants. And if you're a family of 5, 3 times 5, that's quite a decent amount of money. Of course, now you have President Trump. He's even used the word remigration. We're not ready for those conversations quite yet in this country, it seems like, but the Overton window is shifted everywhere, and it won't be long before we're able to actually fully have those conversations here in the UK. And Nigel Farage needs to be very careful that he is at the forefront of those discussions. Otherwise, there'll be a lot of voters who will be looking elsewhere for that.
Lewis, were you one of those people who were disappointed in Nigel in terms of his comments about needing to work with Islam, given its growing impact on our population?
I think just echoing what Ray said, I think there needs to be a clear message. And it seems to be that Reform are kind of pitter-pattering over lots and lots of different issues, but yet is not making it clear. And I'm kind of getting a bit tired, if I'm totally honest, to go back to everything that Farage was, of course, originally he said that I'm not going to go down the route of mass deportations or any of these issues. And then now, after Trump being elected, thank God, it's now seemed to have shifted his mind towards the possibility, even though he originally said that it was an impossibility. So there's quite clearly, there's not a clear message here. So echoing the statement from the gentleman earlier, it's important that Reform must come out with a complete clear messaging and that everyone is on board with that sense. And I sense that a lot of people are scratching their heads at the minute thinking, where is this party going? We elected these guys as the opposition to Labour and Conservative because both of them have moulded into the same party. Yet there's flip-flop already, and they've only just been elected. So clear messaging, clear statement of policy, and a sense of direction, and giving voters reassurance that their vote counted.
Indeed. Well, look, keep up the brilliant work, Lewis Brackpool. Your great independent journalism available from your YouTube channel. There it is, Lewis Brackpool. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.